So I've got my medical school finals coming up and there's just so much content and it's a bit overwhelming. I'm thinking, how do I learn all of this information? Because it feels like it's going through one ear and just coming out of the other. And sometimes I just don't have the energy to want to even sit down and study. So then in this video, I thought I'd share some of the tips that have helped me to actually get down and study. What's the most effective way to study so that you do well in your medical school and in your exams? So the first thing that has really helped me is to review information daily. Now, if you guys are familiar with my channel, you already know that I use Anki. If you're new to my channel, then I've made an entire playlist on how I use Anki in medical school. But essentially, it's an easy way for you to do a bit of work every day to keep that baseline level of knowledge. Because of the amount of content there is to learn in medical school, cramming hardly works. Like, I remember trying to cram for my fourth year exams and it was just a bit too overwhelming because there's just too much stuff. However, if you span it over the long term and know that you're going to do your few daily Anki cards and keep that knowledge brewing in the background, then that's a much easier and a less friction prone way of doing things. So if you're new to Anki and how I use it and things, check out my playlist and my videos. But it just makes the workload a bit more manageable and less overwhelming. The second thing is to test yourself. Now, for me and for you probably as well, you might be thinking, okay, how can I test myself if I don't know the content? And that's what I thought. For me, I always thought, okay, like, right, I need to read everything first so that I actually know the content and then only then I can do questions. However, given that you're not learning everything for the first time, if you're revising, I've actually found it a lot more effective to do questions, which will then help me find out gaps in my knowledge and then learn to fill those gaps. Because the problem is, if I just sit down and say, okay, I'm gonna read this chapter and I'm gonna read everything on cardiology, some of the stuff I'll be reading, I'll probably already know, and then I'll be like, why am I reading this and wasting time? And then I'll just get bored and it'll just be overwhelming if I know I have to read like X hundred pages on cardiology. Whereas if I do this one random cardiology question and get it wrong, it will immediately find a gap in my knowledge. Whereas if I get a question right, I just quickly read the explanation to see if I got it right for the right reasons or if I just guessed it and got it right luckily. If I actually knew the content, there's no point in me reading that chapter if I already know it, so I can just move on to the next question. So doing questions are an easy way to filter out what you know and what you don't know, find gaps in your knowledge and only focus on reading the content on the things that you're struggling with rather than having to read everything over and over again, because that's just not effective. And in addition, if your exams are like mine where they're multiple choice questions, then it also gets you into that exam mindset of how to think and how to answer questions, how to read questions quickly. So it gets you into that exam mindset as well. And you know what they say, practice makes perfect, all that stuff. I just see this as an iterative process of getting better over time, and it's not the most natural way of doing things, and I still struggle with, is it going to be enough just doing questions to get through my finals? But that's what I'm hoping will get me through, so let's hope that works. The next tip is to find a study environment that works for you. I found that when I'm studying here in my desk, right, I'm by myself, I tend to procrastinate so easily because I know that no one's watching me, so sometimes I'll just go on my phone, sometimes I'll start singing, or I don't know if I start singing, but whatever, I'll just do random things that I know I wouldn't do if I was in a library where other people are there and I'm more aware of my actions. And I tried going to the library a couple of times and I found that I actually get a lot more work done, even though the situation may be the same, like a chair and a desk and a computer. Even though that may be the same, because there's everyone else around me that's working, I found that I'm a lot more focused and tend to procrastinate less and do more work. For you, it might be different in that you might do better work in a home environment where you're comfortable and by yourself. Point of this is to experiment and see what works for you. Try with music, try without music. What do you focus more on? What do you focus less on? For me, if I play music that's good music, I tend to start, like karaokeing along to it. So it's not very good if I want to focus and study. So I found that actually silence works a lot better for me, as boring as it may sound. And I know, like, I just thought music would make studying more fun, but actually it makes me a lot more distracted. So I'm boring in that way with no music. Sometimes I listen to classical music, sometimes I listen to lo-fi music. I might just take my headphones to the library and listen to music and stop being boring. But just find out what works for you and just experiment around and play with that. And I was gonna say, if you don't have a library near you that you can go to, but you still want that motivation of other people studying with you, then I've even made, study with me videos. I don't know if they help people, but you can check that out if they do. And then another thing that's been very helpful, more helpful than I thought it would, is actually learning from real life cases. Like literally yesterday, I went on the ward and, you know, trying to keep things confidential and that I won't give out too much detail, but basically there was this patient that presented with a fracture, right? They were screaming in pain and it was a bit of a nightmare because everyone was getting a bit overwhelmed, blah blah blah. But once they settled down, they had their x-ray and the doctor went over and showed me the x-ray and it showed fracture of the bones in the forearm. And then he was like, okay, what's this fracture called? Or have you heard of Montagia fracture? And in my mind I'm thinking, yeah, like that name rings a bell. 2 weeks before my fourth year finals when I crammed all this information in, but it's not coming to me because I haven't revisited that information in a long time. However, when I saw that in real life and the doctor was explaining, you know, this is what we look for, this is what the scan looks like, showed me different things, I then went home and read up on that fracture type. It made a lot more sense because I'd just seen it in real life, I'd seen how it presents, I'd seen what investigations to do for it, which is an x-ray, I'd seen what the x-ray looks like and how to interpret it and what to look out for, and that way it just stuck in my mind a lot more. I remember learning the same thing in fourth year, cramming for finals. I remember just cramming a table of the different fracture types because I went back to look at my notes and I'd learned that for the exams, but obviously it just stuck for that time period for doing the exams and it hadn't stuck with me. Whereas now it makes a lot more sense because I saw it in real life. I know how it presents, I know what to look out for, I know what to test on examination, and just seeing that thing in real life solidifies it and makes it make more sense. So the moral of the story is just like to go to placement more and learn from real life. That's a better way of learning than just reading textbooks. So I hope those tips have been helpful. If you're new to my channel, my name's Abhiyan. I'm a final year medical student studying in London. I've also got a newsletter, so if you're interested, check that in the description below. If you're interested in Anki or my way of learning or whatever, then check out this video here, which I'll link, and make sure to subscribe as well. With that being said, thank you for watching and I'll catch you again in my next video.